So if there are no questions, let's go through this exercise quickly. All right. First one. رجع أبوك من السوق. رجع أبوك من السوق. So the word raja'a means to return. We did that in the exercise, right? When Yusuf said, or Ibrahim said rather, raja'a, dhahabtu wa raja'tu. I went and I came back, right? He went to school and he came back from school, all right? Then, so the word raja'a means to return, right? So the question here, is it a negative question or is it a regular question, right? It's a regular because we don't have the negative particle in this particular sentence, right? So it's a straight question. Raja'a abuka min as-suqi. Did your father come back from the market? Right? So in that case, we answer with na'am or la. Na'am or la. Right? It's a strict question. There's no negative. So bala only comes in when the question is a negative question. We use a negative particle, ma or laisa and so on. Right? So if there's no negative particle in the question, we don't even consider using bala as in the answer. Okay? So we use na'am or la. So araja'a abuka min as-suqi, either na'am, raja'a or la. Ma raja'a. Right? Either yes, he came back or no, he didn't come back. Right? So that is the answer for question 1. Question 2 now. Ama raja'a abuka min as-suqi. Did your father not come back from the market? So the same question, but you have the negative particle here. So how do you respond to that? You use either na'am or bala. So if yes, if he did come back, you would say bala raja'a. Okay, came back. If he did not come back, you would say na'am ma raja'a. Right? Yes, he did not come back. Okay. So just remember that it's a negative question. So if you agree with the negative statement, then you are saying that this thing did not occur because you're agreeing with it by saying na'am. Right? Next one. أذهبت أذهبت ليلى إلى الجامعة. أذهبت ليلى إلى الجامعة. Did Layla go to the university? Did Layla go to the university? So if she went, you would say نعم ذهبت. She didn't go, you say لا ما ذهبت. Yes, she went, or no, she didn't go. All right, straightforward. Right? Whereas if we ask it in a negative form, أما ذهب أخوك إلى الرياض? Did your brother not go to Riyadh? Did your brother not go to Riyadh? If he went, he would say بلى ذهب إلى الرياض. Yes, he went to Riyadh. If he didn't go, he would say نعم ما ذهب إلى الرياض. Right? So you're agreeing with the statement that he did not go to Riyadh. In other words, say no. Right? Any questions on that? Is anyone confused? Clear with everyone, right? Sure. All right, so if there are no questions, let's go to the new chapter here, which is Ad-Darsul Khamis. الدرس الخامس. Remember our ordinal numbers. Our ordinal numbers. So the ordinal numbers are numbering things in an order. So we have أول, ثاني, ثالث, رابع, خامس, and so on. All right. So this is the fifth lesson. الدرس الخامس. الدرس الخامس. So I'm going to read it. I want everyone to follow. Inshallah. We are on صفحة 30. صفحة 30. Page 30. المدرس. Okay. المدرس. من فتح باب الفصل؟ من فتح باب الفصل؟ حامد. أنا فتحته. أنا فتحته. المدرس. ومن فتح النوافذ؟ المدرس. ومن فتح النوافذ؟ علي. أنا فتحتها. أنا فتحتها. المدرس. من كسر هذا المكتب؟ من كسر هذا المكتب؟ أأنت كسرته يا هاشم؟ أأنت كسرته يا هاشم؟ هاشم. لا، إني ما كسرته. إني ما كسرته. المدرس. رجع زكريا وهمزة وعثمان من مكة. رجع زكريا وهمزة وعثمان من مكة. حامل. لا، ما رجعوا. لا، ما رجعوا. عباس. يا أستاذ خرج الطلاب. يا أستاذ خرج الطلاب الجدد وذهبوا إلى المدير. وذهبوا إلى المدير. المدرس. أفهمت الدرس يا طلحة؟ يا طلحة. أفهمت الدرس يا طلحة؟ طلحة. نعم، فهمته جيدا. نعم، فهمته جيدا. المدرس. كتبت الأجوبة يا فيصل؟ كتبت الأجوبة يا فيصل؟ فيصل. لا، ما كتبتها. لا، ما كتبتها. المدرس. لماذا فيصل؟ لأنني ما فهمت الأسئلة. لأنني ما فهمت الأسئلة. المدرس. أحفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم؟ حفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم؟ إبراهيم. نعم، حفظتها وحفظت سورة التين أيضا. Stopping, you will say أيضا because it's Tanwin Fatha and we add the Alif there, right? أيضا. So let's go through it again. I'll read it again line by line and you all can say it after, inshallah ta'ala. Remember today, We are finishing at 7:45 because we said that we start at 6:45 and finish at 7:45, inshallah ta'ala. Right, so we'll be going with that new timing now until further notice, so that those who wish to go to the masjid, those of you who are in Calcutta, go to the masjid and wish to go for the Fajr for Isha at 8 o'clock, you can do so, inshallah. الدرس الخامس, so say after me, inshallah, bismillah. الدرس الخامس. الدرس الخامس. المدرس من فتح باب الفصل. Again, من فتح باب الفصل. حامد. أنا فتحته. أنا فتحته. المدرس. ومن فتح النوافذ. ومن فتح النوافذ. علي. أنا فتحتها. المدرس. من كسر هذا المكتب. من كسر هذا المكتب. أنت كسرته يا هاشم. هاشم. لا، إني ما كسرته. المدرس. رجع زكريا وحمزة وعثمان من مكة. حامد. لا، ما رجعوا. عباس. يا أستاذ. خرج الطلاب الجدد وذهبوا إلى المدير. المدرس. أفهمت الدرس يا طلحة؟ أفهمت الدرس يا طلحة؟ طلحة. نعم، فهمته جيدا. المدرس. كتبت الأجوبة يا فيصل؟ أكتبت الأجوبة يا فيصل؟ فيصل. لا، ما كتبتها. المدرس. لماذا؟ فيصل. لأنني ما فهمت. لأنني ما فهمت الأسئلة. Next page. المدرس. أحفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم؟ أحفظت. There's a little error in the book there. So if you have the book in front of you and you're not using it online or on the screen, you could just take a pen and cross out that, or pencil and cross out that fatha next to the sukun, right? That fatha is supposed to be there, right? is after asking question, then حفظت حفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم. حفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم. إبراهيم نعم حفظتها وحفظت سورة التين أيضا. All right, so let's go back to the top.
Go back to the top of the passage now. Oops, too far. Right. الدرس الخامس lesson. All right. We have المدرس saying من فتح باب الفصل. من فتح باب الفصل. So here we have some more verbs being introduced, all right? Verbs. And we see here the verb fataha, which means to open, fataha, right? And from that, we get many derivatives, right? Like, for example, maftuhun is open. So if your store is maftuhun or the bab is maftuhun, the door is open, you would say maftuhun. You also get from that the tool of the verb, which is the tool to open something, which is a key, right? So from fataha, you get miftah. Miftah is a key, all right? So you get many derivatives from the root word. So here the root is fataha, fataha. Note here that most three-letter verbs in Arabic, if not all of them, most of them, the vast majority, they have fatha in the root form, where you have the three root letters, fataha. The first letter and the last letter always carry the fatha. Okay? So dhahaba, jalasa, shariba, and so on. Right? The middle letter, the fatha or kasra, very rare, and dhamma in the third person singular past tense. All right? So fataha, fatha. In this case, you have a fatha in the middle letter as well, and then a fatha on the last letter. All right? So man fataha, who opened. Notice here, so far we are dealing with past tense verbs only. Past tense verbs only. So we would translate fataha as opened, right? So man fataha, who opened, right? Bab al fasli, the door of the, what's the fasl? Everybody knows the fasl? Classroom, the door of the classroom, right? So who opened the door of the classroom? Hamid said, Ana fatahtuhu. Ana fatahtuhu. So Hamid said, I opened it. Good. We saw in the chapter before, lesson 4, where Ibrahim and Yusuf were speaking. Ibrahim said, right, dhahabtu wa raja'tu. Dhahabtu wa raja'tu. Right? Remember, I requested that everyone memorize chapter 4 in terms of the conversation. It's very beneficial and we will build on it going forward. All right? So, dhahabtu wa raja'tu. I went and I came back. So, when we are speaking first person past tense verb, first person past tense, we use the ta with the dhamma added at the end. All right? The ta with the dhamma. So, raja'a, raja'tu. Dhahaba, dhahabtu. Shariba is to drink something. Sharabtu or sharibtu. Fataha, to open something. Right? Fatah, tu. So that's what we're seeing here. The ta with the dhamma on it here, indicating first person, right? Singular. First person, singular. fatahtu. Ana fatahtu. I am the one who opened. Right? Open what? Fatahtu who. Now we could say, in this sentence, we can say, Ana fatahtu bab al-fasli. I opened the door of the classroom. Or we can use a pronoun. In this case, door is a masculine word, so therefore you use the masculine pronoun, which is, in this case, it has to be attached, so it will be who, right? Ana fatahtu who. So that word, which looks like one word in your book there, right? Ana is one word, and then fatahtuhu looks like one word, but it's really two words. The verb with the attachment is to indicate first person, the two, and then the pronoun attached to indicate the door, right? Ana fatahtuhu. Remember here that in Arabic, there's no common gender or neuter gender. It's only masculine or feminine. So even the pronouns, so we use either masculine pronoun or feminine pronoun. That is why the same pronoun we use for he, we will also use for it. Right? In English, we won't say he referring to the door, we will say it because it's neuter, right? Any questions so far? So this is the now Hamid could have said, notice this, please. I want you to take note of this, right? Hamid could just have well said, fatahtuhu. Fatahtuhu. Instead of saying ana fatahtuhu, you can say fatahtuhu, right? And it would have been correct. And it would have meant the same thing. I opened it, right? In that case, you would have, his response would have been in the form of a verbal sentence. Now, we said the verbal sentence starts with a verb. So if he left out the ana and he just said fatahtuhu is a sentence beginning, that whole thing is a sentence. That whole thing, which is all the letters join up, is one sentence, right? Starts with the verb, which is the fataha, fa, ita, the ha. Then you have the doer of the verb, in which case will be the ta, the attached pronoun, the ta, indicating I, right? Which is the conjugation for first person past tense, first person singular. Okay? Right? And then the who will be the maf'ul bihi. We said in a verbal sentence, they must have two components, and sometimes there is a third component as well. All right? So the first component is, of course, the verb, because it's a verbal sentence, they must have a verb to start the sentence. The second component is the doer of the verb, and the third component, which we say occurs sometimes, is the maf'ul bihi, which will be the object or the thing in which the verb is acting upon. Right? The verb is an action word, so therefore it can act on something. Right? So in this case, fatahtuhu is a verbal sentence which has all three components. The fataha is the verb. The tu here is the doer of the verb, meaning I am the doer of the verb, and the who, it, meaning referring to the door, is the maf'ul bihi, or the object of the sentence. All right, that thing which is being opened or which was opened. All right, so that whole sentence thing there, it is a verbal sentence. Al mudarrisu, next line. Al mudarrisu wa man fataha an nawafidha. An nawafidha is plural for what? Nafidha. Nafidhatun, nawafidha. Right? Nafidhatun is a window. So an nawafidh, it is windows, the windows. So the teacher is asking, and who opened the windows? Who opened the windows? All right, so similar question. All right. Ali replied, Ana fatahtuha. Ana fatahtuha. Why did he say ha? and not who. Yeah, everybody knows.
Because the windows is plural inanimate.
Right. So the windows is plural inanimate, and we said that one sets plural غير عاقل. Right. غير, we have عاقل, which is with sense, and غير عاقل without sense. So um, it's غير عاقل. So we use, for plurals, we use singular feminine form. We treat it as a singular feminine word. All right. So that's why we use the singular feminine pronoun, which is the ha at the end there. Okay. So again, similarly, Ali replied, Ana fatahtuha. So that's why we have the ha at the end here of, and we have the same kind of combination here. Fatahtuha. So you have the verb, you have the doer of the verb, and you have the maf'ul bihi. Fi'l, fa'il, and maf'ul bihi. Fa'il is the verb, fa'il is the doer of the verb, and maf'ul bihi is the object. All right. So we have fatahtuha. I opened them. In this case, the ha, even though it's singular feminine, when you translate in it, remember that it refers to a plural of inanimate, so we use them. I open them. I open them. Okay. Fa'il is the verb. Fa'il is the doer of the verb, and maf'ul bihi is the object. Right? In the verbal sentence, you have fa'il is called verbal sentence because it starts with a verb. Right? So therefore, the verb is the fa'il, and then of course the action, which is the verb, must have a doer. Somebody must be doing the action. So that is where the fa'il is. And then the action sometimes is performed on a particular object, and that is the object of the sentence, which is the maf'ul bihi. Maf'ul bihi. Any questions again? المدرس من كسر هذا المكتب مكتبة من كسر هذا المكتبة. Who broke this desk? So the word kasara means to break, or he broke. He broke. Okay. So من كسر هذا المكتب. Who broke this desk? All right. Remember when we use the word هذا, if we say هذا maktabun, we are saying this is a desk. If we say هذا المكتب, we are saying this desk. This desk. Okay. So in this case, we have هذا المكتب, this desk. All right. So we have question again by the teacher again here. من كسر هذا المكتب? And then he continues with a follow-up question. أأنت كسرته يا هاشم? Did you break it, O Hashim? So nobody replied. He asked a question. Who break this desk? Nobody replied. So then he's trying to figure out who it is. So he said, أأنت? Did you? كسرته. So we have the same kind of combination here. Verb, doer of the verb, and the object of the action, right? So kasara, to break. The ta here in this case is the second person masculine singular pronoun for the attached to the verb, all right? Kasarta, who? The who refers to the maktab, the desk, right? Anta kasarta, who? Ya Hashim, did you break it, O Hashim? Hashim said, La. Hashim said what? La. Inni ma kasartuhu. Inni ma kasartuhu. No, verily, I did not break it. Okay? So you have the word la, meaning no. Then you have inni, which is a combination of inna and the ya mutakallim, which is I, right? So verily I ma kasartuhu. Ma here is what? Is a negative particle. It negates what comes after, right? So ma kasartuhu, right? I did not break it. I did not break it. Again, we have the combination here. Kasara, then you have the tu, which is I, and then the who referring to the desk, which is the maf'ul bihi, the maf'ul bihi. All right. Next line. Al-mudarrisu raja'a Zakariya wa Hamzatu wa Uthmanu min Makkata. Right. So here we have a question by the teacher again. Now, here it is a verbal sentence, right? So you have the verbal sentence and you add the Hamza to ask to make it into a question, right? So if you take out the Hamza in the front, we have Raja'a Zakariya wa Hamzatu wa Uthmanu bin Makkata, right? Zakariya, Hamza, Uthman came back or returned from Makkah. That's what that sentence says, right? We add the Hamza at the front, Hamza, the Aleph here. Once we add that before the sentence, it makes it a question. So it's no longer a statement, it is now a question. Okay? Raja'a Zakariya wa Hamzatu wa Uthmanu min Makkah. So it's a question the teacher is asking, right? So if we take out the Hamza, we get back this verbal sentence which begins with the verb Raja'a, Raja'a. Okay? One note here, I want you all to note. If you have a verbal sentence, right, which obviously will start with a verb, right, it has to agree with the doer of the verb in gender, right? So whether it's past tense verb, present tense verb, or so on, it has to agree with the doer of the verbs coming after in gender, not necessarily in number. Okay? Not necessarily in number. So it is quite correct to say here, Raja'a, when all the time you have been using that base word for singular, right? When Yusuf said Raja'tu, Dhahabtu or Raja'tu, right? Hamid said in this exercise here, Fatahtu. Man fataha nawafil, ana fatahtuhu. So using the singular. Here we are talking about three people. Zakaria, Hamza, and Uthman. Zakaria, Yahya, Zakaria, Hamza, and Uthman. Okay? But yet we are using Raja'a, which we said was the singular. Didn't we say that? We said as a singular. We said as a third person, but we are speaking third person here, so that's correct. Right? Past tense, singular, masculine. Okay? But yet we are speaking about three people, so we are using plural. So in this case, once we begin the sentence with the verb, then we can use the singular form. No matter how much people come after 1, 2, 3, we can use the singular form. However, if it is feminine, then we have to make it feminine. So if it was instead of Zakaria, Hamza, and Uthman, if it was Zainab and Salma and Aisha, then we would say Raja'at, Raja'at. Zainab wa Salma wa Amina and so on. All right. Here we are using masculine, so we use Raja'a. If, however, the sentence was the other way around, where we begin with Zakaria, wa Hamza, wa Uthman, then we put the verb after, then it will be, we have to get the verb to agree in terms of number as well. So if you switch around the sentence and we say, I want you all to pay attention to this, right? If we switch around the sentence and we say, Zakaria wa Hamza to Uthmanu, we would have to say Raja'u, the plural. You have to say raja'u because it's coming after the subject of the sentence. All right. So that's just a note there in terms of how we can structure a verbal sentence, right?
Yeah, Ustad.
Um,
If it were a mixture of gender,
um,
Zakaria wa Hamza wa Aisha.
right. Well, we use the well, as is a norm and the convention in Arabic language, once there's a mix, we use the masculine, right? We use the masculine. And this is the convention found in classical Arabic, right? Even in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers, says that he spoke to the angels and tell them to bow down, they all bow down except Iblis. Does that imply that Iblis is an angel? No, it doesn't. Right? In this case, Allah was referring to the angels and Iblis was among the angels. Right? But the command was applicable to him as well, right? Even though he himself was not an angel. Right? Now, any other questions? So Hamid replies, La ma raja'u. Ma raja'u. Here now we have to use the plural because we're referring back now to the three persons. So we have to use the plural here. All right. Next line. Abbasun ya ustadhu kharaja at-tullabu al-jududu. So we see the same concept applied here. Kharaja is the singular form, singular third person, masculine. All right. Singular third person, masculine. Kharaja. But the word after it, it is plural. Right? Tullabu. At-tullabu is plural of talibu. At-talibu. Right? So students, plural. So kharaja at-tullabu al-jududu. The word al-judud is the adjective, so it has to agree with the word tullab in all its aspects, right? So definiteness, gender, number, case, and so on, right? So it agrees with it. That's why we have judud and not jadid. Okay. So kharaja at-tullabu al-jududu. The new students, kharaja, they left. Okay. وَذَهَبُوا إِلَى الْمُدِيرِ. And they went. Aha, look at this now. You see the form of the verb used here? See the form of the verb used here? ذَهَبُوا. ذَهَبُوا. So the verb that came before the subject is in a singular form. kharaja. Do you see it? Do you all see it? Do you all see it? So kharaja is singular before, right? The subject here is at-tullabu. But if you have a verb coming after it referring back to that subject, then we have to make it agree in terms of the number. So here we have kharaja at-tullabu al-jurudu wa dhahabu ila al-mudiri. Two verbs referring to the same group of people, referring to the same subject. But because of where they are positioned in the sentence, one, we can keep it singular because it starts the sentence. And the other one, we have to make it agree in a number because it comes after the subject. You understand that? So we have kharaja at-tullabu al-jurudu wa dhahabu ila al-mudiri. So the new students came out wa dhahabu ila al-mudiri, and they went to the principal. So they came out and went to the principal, or they exited and they went to the principal. All right. Al-mudarrisu afahimta ad-darsa ya Talha. Do you understand the lesson? O Talha. Talha says, نعم فهمته جيدا. Yes, I understood it very well. I understood it very well. It's past tense we're dealing with here, right? المدرس أكتبت الأجوبة يا فيصل. Did you write the answers? Oh, Faisal. Faisal says لا ما كتبتها. No, I did not write them. المدرس لماذا? Why? فيصل لأنني ما فهمت الأسئلة. Because I did not understand the questions. I did not write it because I did not understand the questions, right? لأنني ما فهمت, because ما فهمت, I did not understand الأسئلة, the questions, right? And then the Mudarris asks, أحفظت سورة الفجر يا إبراهيم? Did you memorize Surah Fajr? O Ibrahim? Ibrahim says, نعم حفظتها وحفظت سورة التين أيضا. I memorized it and I memorized Surah Teen also. Okay, good. So this is the end of the conversation here. Next week, inshallah, we're going to the exercises. You have a couple of pages to go through. Inshallah, when we come next week, we will recap the lesson quickly again, and then we go into the exercises, right? Any questions? Just have a minute again. Any questions? All right, so close off with dua for kafara and surah al-asr. Inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.